Chapter 1. The Storm Before the Collision. The marble atrium of the United States Capitol echoed like a cathedral of politics, its high dome casting back every murmur, every hurried footstep, every whispered speculation of reporters, who clustered like hawks waiting for a signal. The polished floors gleamed under the light of the chandeliers, reflecting flashes from cameras that seemed to multiply the tension in the air. For weeks, Washington had been murmuring about instability in West Africa, about whether new leaders in the Sahel were bending toward authoritarianism or trying to carve their nations free from foreign control. But now, the rumors had solidified into something more tangible. The name of Captain Ibrahim Traoré was whispered in the same breath as revolution, defiance, and the possibility of a geopolitical earthquake. At the same time, another figure was preparing to make his entrance, not to Washington, but to the global stage once again. Donald J. Trump, former President of the United States and perennial figure of controversy, had been weaving himself back into the threads of power, louder, brasher, and sharper than ever. The world had grown used to his unpredictable cadence. But there was something different now. He was not just a man seeking political office again. He was a man hungry to reclaim what he considered his lost throne. And he was willing to challenge anyone, foreign leaders, corporate elites, entrenched bureaucrats, who stood in his way. The collision course was being drawn quietly, invisibly at first, like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface before an earthquake. The idea of Trump and Traoré ever sharing a stage, or worse, locking horns in a direct confrontation, seemed implausible to many. What could a brash, billionaire-turned-politician from New York possibly have in common with a young military officer who had seized power in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso? And yet, the undercurrents of their rhetoric, the challenge they posed to established systems, and their willingness to say what others dared not, made the confrontation feel inevitable. The whisper networks. Journalists sensed it first. There were murmurings that Trump's campaign team was preparing for an Africa pivot, not the carefully polished kind that previous administrations had rolled out, but something raw, populist, and disruptive. In the corridors of think tanks in Washington, analysts debated what this could mean. Was Trump positioning himself to critique US foreign policy in Africa? Was he preparing to leverage Traoré as a foil in his broader argument against the globalist order? Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Traoré had been consolidating not just power, but influence. His speeches were no longer confined to national broadcasts. Clips of him railing against neocolonialism, declaring Burkina Faso's independence from the old guard of French influence, and calling out multinational corporations, began circulating widely on social media. Young people across Africa shared his words like wildfire. In certain circles, he was being hailed not just as a leader, but as a symbol, an icon of resistance in an age of cynicism. By the time Trump's team hinted at a global leadership summit to be held in New York, the dots began to connect. Rumors spread that Traoré himself might be invited, or might force his way onto the stage. The idea seemed absurd to Washington insiders, but electrifying to those who followed world affairs with less polished eyes. What would happen if these two men, so different in background yet oddly similar in defiance, came face to face? Trump's preparation. In a gilded room inside Trump Tower, Donald Trump sat at a long table with advisors. Though listened was too generous a word. He leaned forward, hands moving with the rhythm of his own speech, voice booming as he rehearsed lines for the summit. They don't understand it. Nobody understands it better than me. Africa, listen, Africa has been treated horribly, by the globalists, by the French, by the corrupt people in the United Nations. They've been ripping Africa off for years, taking the gold, the uranium, the oil. Believe me, I know deals. I know theft when I see it. And you know what? I think some people over there, strong people, they're starting to say, we are not going to take it anymore. And I like that. I really do. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. One of them, a former diplomat, leaned forward. Mr. Trump, with all due respect, this Traoré character, he's unpredictable. He's not someone we can easily categorize. If you praise him too much, you risk legitimizing a coup leader. If you attack him, you risk alienating a rising populist movement across Africa. Trump waved his hand dismissively. Please. I know how to handle strong people. I handled Kim Jong-un. I handled Xi. I even handled Putin, better than anybody. People like that, they respect strength. They don't respect weakness. Traoré, young guy, tough guy, military, says what he thinks. I like it. But if he steps out of line with me, I'll put him in his place so fast, it'll make your head spin. Traoré's resolve. Meanwhile, half a world away, Ibrahim Traoré stood in a dimly lit office within Burkina Faso's presidential compound. His military fatigues, still crisp despite the long day, bore the weight of symbolism as much as practicality. Around him, aides discussed logistics, media, and security, but his mind was elsewhere. On the desk before him lay a printout of an American news article, its headline screaming, "Trump eyes Africa as stage for new political theater." He read it slowly, eyes narrowing. For Traoré, the West was not merely a set of foreign capitals. It was a system that had dictated terms to his people for generations. He had not risked his life to stage a coup just to become another pawn in someone else's narrative. If Trump wanted to make Africa part of his political show, Traoré was determined to confront him, on equal footing, before the world. Turning to his closest advisor, he spoke with calm intensity. "If they invite me to the summit, I will go. And if they do not invite me, I will go anyway. Africa is not a prop for American politics. If Trump wishes to speak of our future, let him speak to us directly. I will not allow Africa to be spoken of as though we are not in the room." The first glimpses of collision. The weeks leading up to the summit felt like the tightening of a coil. On television, Trump's name and Traoré began to appear side by side, even in jest. Pundits laughed at the idea of a Trump versus Traoré showdown. But beneath the humor was an undercurrent of unease. Both men thrived in environments where they could defy expectations, speak unscripted, and dominate the room with sheer force of personality. In Ouagadougou, crowds began to gather outside government buildings, holding signs with slogans not just in French, but in English. "Traoré will not bow. Africa speaks for itself." In Washington, analysts scrambled to write memos warning that giving Traoré a stage alongside Trump could embolden anti-Western sentiment. But the decision had already been made. Invitations were sent, stage designs finalized, and the world was unknowingly preparing for one of the most charged confrontations of the decade. And so, the stage was set. The golden-haired billionaire who once commanded the White House and the young captain who had seized power in the Sahel were about to step into the same arena. Neither would back down. Neither knew compromise as their first instinct. And the world, already fraying at the edges, was about to witness sparks that could ignite more than just headlines. The storm was gathering. The arena had changed. No longer the roaring stadium filled with chants of fans, but a private hall where shadows seemed to carry more weight than applause. The air was denser here, charged not with excitement but with consequence. Tall windows overlooked the city lights, and heavy curtains swayed with the faint hum of air conditioning. This was no longer about sport. It was about what lay behind it: power, money, and the silent machinery that turned talent into profit. Ronaldo sat forward, his posture disciplined, every movement rehearsed like a striker waiting for the perfect ball. His gaze locked on Traoré, but there was something sharper than competition in it. It was the gaze of a man defending more than reputation, defending an empire. "You think this game is just about goals?" Ronaldo's voice cut through the room, calm yet edged with fire. "But the real game is behind the curtain. Contracts, sponsorships, influence. That's where the world bends." Traoré leaned back, his silhouette calm against the dim light. He did not blink, did not shift. He let the silence linger before replying, voice low but heavy, the kind that seemed to echo even after the words were gone. "And who bends it, Ronaldo? You? The corporations that use your face to sell dreams? Or the system that fattens itself on your fame while millions starve for opportunity?" Attention filled the room, thicker than the walls could contain. For the first time, Ronaldo's jaw tightened, his carefully curated calm cracking for just a second. Cameras, or perhaps the invisible eyes of history, were watching. "You're admired because you play," Traoré continued, leaning forward now, eyes burning. "But have you asked yourself who profits most when you score? Whose pockets fill when your shirt sells by the millions? The system doesn't love you, it uses you." Ronaldo straightened, his voice rising, a surge of pride and defiance. "No. I became who I am because I worked harder than anyone. I bled for this. I earned it." The words hung there like a shield, but Traoré's response was sharper than any tackle on the pitch. "Hard work, yes. Talent, yes. But even you, Ronaldo, are a piece on their board. And every empire falls when the people see the truth." The silence afterward was deafening. Somewhere outside, the world continued. Cars, voices, city lights. But in this hall, the clash was not just between two men. It was between two visions of the world. One built on the glittering promise of success, the other on the raw question of who truly holds the strings. Under the harsh white light of the Lisbon press hall, the world's most powerful microphones lined up like bayonets on the stage. The emblem of FIFA gleamed behind the podium, polished to perfection, as though authority itself could be burnished into something eternal. But the cameras didn't care for the shine. They wanted conflict, raw and human. the kind that could tear open the facade of global sports and reveal the machinery beneath. Cristiano Ronaldo sat forward in his chair, the fabric of his tailored suit tightening, around muscles that had been built not just for football, but for combat of image, prestige, survival. His jaw was sharp, his expression harder than the marble floors beneath him. Across from him sat Traoré, framed by shadows more than by spotlights, a presence that unsettled not because of fame, but because of defiance. His hands rested calmly on the table, fingers interlaced, posture steady as though he had nothing to prove, yet everything to dismantle. The moderator cleared his throat, but the silence swallowed him whole. The hall knew this wasn't a debate, it was a collision. Ronaldo finally broke the quiet. His voice carried the weight of stadiums, of millions who adored him. You think you can stand here and accuse me of being just another pawn of the system? Football gave hope to people when politicians failed. It gave me a way out of poverty, and through me, millions have found inspiration. You don't tear that down with your slogans. Traoré didn't blink. His reply came slow, deliberate, every word like a stone dropping into a still lake.